So I was thinking to myself, how can I make my videos more appealing and more interesting and more fun? How can I reinvigorate some of my videos? And the thought occurred to me, I should talk about finance. Everybody loves talking about finance, right? Seriously though, we need to talk about finance when it comes to self-publishing. It's a very important thing, and whether you are trying to price a book for the first time, or just trying to figure out where you can become profitable as far as being an author and selling and that kind of stuff. Finance is super important. So I want to talk about that. I'll make it as fun as I possibly can. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for liking my post. Hint, hint. So I wanted to do a couple of videos talking a little bit about marketing and selling and that kind of stuff, because I think when it comes to self-publishing, that is one of the most difficult things for a lot of new authors to do. And when I say to do, I mean mainly marketing your book, but also figuring out how much to sell it for. The number of people that I've seen over the past couple of years, as I've been especially involved in the author community over on Facebook, that offer their books for free because they think that that's the best way to market them, is astonishing. And mainly due to a lack of really business know-how, business knowledge, just from not having experienced that, because if you've never done it before, if you've never been involved or taken classes or gotten any like higher education as far as marketing and I'm trying to think of the word finance and that kind of stuff, then you wouldn't know what you don't know, right? So I thought, I'll make a video talking about some of that stuff, mainly because one, I've got 3 books now that I've published, and 2, I'm in the middle of a marketing course, a business management marketing course, trying to get my degree in business management. And I've learned a lot since I started that course as far as how to run a business and what to look for and different things like that. So I thought, well, I should probably share some of that stuff with other potential authors out there and people maybe who are not authors but are interested, because all of this applies to any small business that you might want to run, whether that be as an author or whatever other venture you might go for. And when I say small business, I mean small business, because if you are a self-published author, you are inherently running a small publishing company. Now, you might only be publishing your own work, but you're still running a publishing company. And so you have to look at the costs and everything that goes along with that. Now, for me, when I first started, I didn't really think much about it. Obviously, like I said, I was just starting my course in business management marketing, so I didn't know a lot of this stuff. And I learned a lot over last year. I took a finance class, a bunch of different business classes, and stuff that kind of taught me like what is going on in the inner workings of a business. You go to a store like Walmart, for instance, and you don't think about what goes into getting those products on the shelves. You look at the products and you see the box of cereal for $4.99 or whatever, and you don't realize that somewhere along the line that started off as nothing more than just a concept, and it got built over time to finally become an item on a shelf. And the same thing goes with books. You start thinking, I want to write a book, and at the beginning it's this huge scary prospect. You don't know how you don't know how to get it from up here out there to where people can then buy it. So, getting into the finance, the first thing that you have to consider when you're writing a book, and honestly, if you say, I just want to write a book for fun, I don't want to make any money off of it, I don't care, it's a hobby. One, this video is not for you probably, and 2, you're lying to yourself because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort to write a book. If you have a story that's just inside your head, hey, go ahead and keep it inside your head. Maybe even sit down in a Microsoft Word document or with a pen and paper and write it out so that you can read it yourself and never bother to put it out into the world. But if you are actively trying to put your book out into the world, you want other people to read it. Otherwise, you wouldn't. Why would you do that? That's a lot of wasted effort, right? You want people to read it, and ultimately, you want to make some money off of it, and you deserve to make some money off of it. if you've taken the time and effort to write a book, that time is worth something. Your time is valuable. And so you have to take that into consideration. How long does it take you to write a book? And not in months or years, because realistically, even though it might take years from the time you start a book to the time you actually publish it, it didn't actually take years to write that book, right? So, for instance, with I'll use the journal as an example because that was my debut. When I was writing that, I was doing basically a chapter a week, and I was spending 6 or 7 hours a week at most, writing it and then editing each chapter individually as I went. And then overall, and then about 23 chapters, 24 chapters, something like that. So you figure that math out, 150, 175 hours, something like that. Uh, you can average it out a little bit more and kind of figure out exactly how many hours it took to edit and all that kind of stuff. But you're looking at conservatively 200 to 250 hours for just a regular sized novel, right? The journal isn't anything spectacular. It's 55,000 words. It's nothing huge. So you're looking at 200 or 250 hours minimum as a conservative estimate, right? For how long it'll take you to actually write a book. And that time is valuable. So when you're calculating how much to sell a book for, that time should factor in because you should get paid back for that time. Now, other costs that you might incur as a self-published author, if you aren't multi-talented, if you if you aren't able to uh, edit the book yourself and that kind of stuff, you're gonna have to pay an editor. So that cost is gonna come in there somewhere, and that's anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. You've got the cost of if you don't want to design your own book covers, if you want to get those professionally done, that can cost a few $100s minimum. So there's all these different costs to factor in. But let's jump forward from the actual cost, and let's say that you've gotten it all ready to go, and now you want to publish it. How much should you charge for it? Now, when I said at the beginning that I'd seen a lot of people saying that they were going to offer their ebooks for free and that kind of thing, it was the reason I said that wasn't a good idea is because one, people inherently will look at the price of an object and decide how valuable that object is based on the price. So let's take, for instance, a priceless painting like the Mona Lisa, right? The Mona Lisa itself, if you look at just the canvas and the paint and what went into it, as well as the time to actually paint it, might only be worth in today's dollars, a few $100 maybe. But it actually sells for a lot more than that. I haven't looked up it got to be tens of thousands, probably millions of dollars for the original Mona Lisa at this point, right? So, and I'll put that in here as an interesting little tidbit. But you get the idea. It's inherently based on the value. The value is taken off of the price of an object. So let's say you offer an ebook for free on Amazon. Well, there's a lot of other people offering their books for free on Amazon as well. So you're immediately competing with all of these people that have also decided to go the same route and offer their book for free. On top of that, people will look at your book, and there might be the occasional person that'll say, "Oh, this is an interesting. I'll go ahead and pick this one up since it's free anyway." Maybe they'll get around to reading it. Probably not. But if you decide to charge $2.99 or $3.99 or $4.99 for that same book, well, now people start to look at it a little bit differently. And yeah, maybe they've never heard of you before as an author, but maybe your book looks interesting. And now because they've invested a little bit of money into it, they're more likely to actually read it. It's something called the sunk cost fallacy. The more that you've invested into something, the more likely you are to defend it, to enjoy it, to make sure that you take advantage of it. If you spend $500 on concert tickets, you're going to damn well make sure you make it to that concert, right? It's the same thing with if you spend $4 or $5 on an ebook, you're going to make sure that you sit down and read that ebook because you spent the money to do that. Plus, you spent the money because, well, if it's $3.99 or $4.99, it's probably a pretty good book because it's actually selling for some money. So there's that factors in as well. And that's just for ebooks, right? And an ebook, based off what I was talking about a minute ago, if you look at your time and you value your time, and let's say that you take 200 hours to write a book, and you want to pay yourself $10 an hour, that means that that book ostensibly cost you $2,000. Let's say you did all the editing, all the design in 200 hours, and you did it all yourself, and you paid yourself $10 an hour. That book would cost you $2,000 to make. So how many copies would you have to sell to make back what you put into it, right? So if you look at just ebooks, let's say you sold the ebook for $3.99, you would have to sell about 500 copies before you would make back your investment. And that's the way that that you have to look at this as a business. You have to say, okay, I've invested this into doing this. How many do I need to sell to make it back? Decide whether it's profitable or not. Now, how you can sell those 500 books, we'll go over in a future video. Like I said, I want to do something on marketing as well, separately. But that's just for the ebook. And now look at paperback or hardcovers. You know, all of my books obviously are in paperback. I've got the journal as well as in a hardcover. And then all of them, except for Legends and Tales, is not an ebook yet. I'm working on that. But you see, they're all paperbacks, right? Paperbacks, if you go through Amazon, typically especially if you're buying them in lower quantities, you can get what are called author copies. Author copies are at cost copies that are provided to you via the printer. So for Amazon, they will provide copies depending on how much it takes to print the books, anywhere from $3 to $5, depending on how thick the book is. It can be a little bit more for bigger books. But my books could usually run between $3 and $5 for the author copies, right? And of course, there has to be a markup on that. Now, if you buy a book on Amazon, part of that markup includes the royalties, because Amazon does take a cut of your profits if you're an author. But that's true of anywhere. If you're traditionally published, the publishing company takes that cut. In this case, Amazon takes that cut, right? But for instance, I will sell my books on my website too, and I'll sell them for the same price, but I get a bigger cut because I'm only paying for the author copy price. So let's say the author copy price is $3 and you sell a book for $10. Well, selling it yourself, you probably make $7. Whereas selling it on a site like Amazon, you might make $5. So you got to take all of that into consideration, where you're selling it, how much you're making. But the fun part about that is each book that I sell makes back the cost of printing the book for Amazon, right? The cost of printing the book for Amazon is, let's say, $3 for one of these. They make back their costs, plus they make back a couple extra dollars from me, and then I get the rest. So all of that is taken into consideration when you as a business owner or Amazon as a business are figuring up how many copies they need to sell. So each copy, one for one, makes a profit. Now, with print on demand stuff, that makes a lot more sense, because you know, you're not printing it until somebody's ordered it, right? So for Amazon, they aren't actually using that $3. That $3 isn't actually taken out of their budget until somebody has bought the book. Now for me, because I need to keep an inventory on hand, I have to order author copies. In fact, I've got some coming today. I ran out of stock for GPS Signal Lost and Legends and Tales, so I had to reorder. So to keep that stock on hand, I actually have to pay to buy the books and then have them shipped to me. And so I have to factor all of those costs in. It gets really complicated really fast. It's easier to kind of break it down and figure out, you know, I've got a spreadsheet that I follow and everything. But the essential part of it is you have to take your costs, you have to take how much you have, how much you want to sell it for, and then you figure out what your profit margin is. And that profit margin then goes back into buying, you know, the ideal profit margin buys another copy or makes another one of those products, gives you some extra to be able to reinvest, and gives you something to live off of, right? So for instance, if I take, we'll do GPS Signal Lost, for instance. My average cost for books to order author copies is about $4.65. So out of that $4.65, if I sell a book on my website for $13.99, I get a little less than $10, not about $9, right? Well, $4.65 of the total cost obviously comes out of the $13.99 as paying for the book. Another $4.60 or so would go towards ordering future copies, and then the remainder would be the actual profit. So that's very high level as far as when you're looking at just books, right? I am expanding my business into books. My wife and I are opening our own little shop. We're selling candles, we're selling books, we're selling photographs. I got some postcards and that kind of stuff. So we're selling all of that stuff. And all of that has its own separate cost, its own separate dynamic, and how we figure it out. And then, of course, there's the difference between selling in person versus selling online, because online, you got some extra added costs in there. So there's a lot of stuff to think about when you're doing this. Now, if you just want to sell on Amazon, like I said earlier, the easiest way to figure out is figure out how much it costs you to make the thing, how much you're making from the thing in profit. So you take the per item, how much it costs to manufacture that one item, how much you're selling it at, subtract how much you're selling at minus how much how much it costs to make it. That's your profit. And then you figure out, how many do I need to sell in order to actually turn a profit based off of my total costs. And like I said earlier, with an ebook per copy, it doesn't cost you anything technically. You can put it up on Amazon for free. You don't have to pay anything. And if you sell it for free, you don't pay Amazon anything. Now, ebooks, every copy, Amazon will take a cut of. For instance, I think I've got 70%. I get 70%. Amazon gets 30%. So Amazon does take a cut of that. So that's not 100% pure profit, but it's money that you're making as you go along. So that was as simple as I could make it and break it down. I thought it was important to talk about. It's something that I'd love to expand on in the future. If you have any other questions, if you're wondering anything or want to see me dig into any particular topic, I didn't have a whole lot of graphics and stuff up on this because that's just I typically don't do that. I try to be a little bit more relaxed and laid back with my videos. Grab a cup of coffee, and sit here and just kind of chill and talk about whatever's on my mind and whatever I want to talk about. It's more of a I want to say lecture type of thing, but it's not really a lecture, I guess. I don't know exactly how to describe these videos. All I know is that I want them to be laid back. I want them to be fun and loose because let's be real, I don't have any control on YouTube. First of all, I'm not Mr. Beasting it. Okay. I'm not going to sit there and do a million quick jump cuts and throw up big sums of money and all that kind of stuff. So realistically on YouTube, over time, the people that find me, if you're still watching at this point, you're probably already subscribed. If you're not, hey, why aren't you subscribed? You've watched this entire way. I don't know how far we are into this. We're almost 18 minutes into this video now. If you haven't subscribed and you made it this far into a finance about self-publishing video, you should probably subscribe, all right, and like the video. But let's be real. I don't know how many people are actually gotten this far in the video. And I've got a million other things out there that I talk about. It's a laid back, loose type of thing, and I don't expect to necessarily blow up on YouTube or anything like that. It would be nice. I would love to make some ad revenue off of this. I do have a Patreon that got a few people over there, so you can sign up for there if you want to help out. But like realistically, the reason I'm starting my business, like I'm going to sell in person, is because selling in person is the way to go. Realistically, and I'll talk more about that in the marketing video when we do that one. Should be the next one. But selling in person, for instance, like we're going to, we got a flea market we're going to be going to. We've got another event that we've signed up for that I'm waiting to hear back on. We should be able to get into it though. But it's in person stuff where you've got people walking around and then people are looking to spend money, and you're face to face with those people, And while I can't control getting every one of those people to come up to me necessarily, I can kind of control that by having a flashy booth and having something that looks interesting for people, and I've got that planned. But on the internet, on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're at, it doesn't matter how flashy you are. It's kind of like being in the middle of a town square, but you have like a curtain in front of you, and you have to hope that either the occasional person comes up and peeks behind that curtain to see what you have, or that you are somehow able to get that curtain to kind of spread open. And often it's the platform coming in and pulling it open so that people can see you. Sometimes they'll leave it open, other times they'll shut it real quick. But it's one of those deals where online is a hell of a lot more difficult. So I'm planning on doing stuff in person because this is what I want to do. This is what I want to make money doing. And when it comes to that, you have to pull out all the stops. You have to do everything within your power. And that's kind of what I'm doing. So we got that coming up. I'm going to talk more about that, like I said, in the marketing video. GPS Signal Loss is coming out April 26th. You can pre-order that now if you're interested. All of my books are available on my website and Amazon. Like I said, the website, I get more out of that. But, either way, I don't mind if you're not comfortable buying. Not everybody's comfortable buying on a personal website from an author or, a private person. I guess I'm not really private. I'm public, really. But, you get the idea. But with all of that, I'm going to leave a puppy at the end of the video. I neglected to do that with the last video because it was more of like deep diving. There's other stuff on the. Go watch that one if you haven't already. But I want to thank you all for watching. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.
We got our windows down, driving down the 405, sing along to the radio. We're gonna make it someday. Nothing's gonna get in our way. We will be the biggest band in town.